Hey folks, well, I'm pretty excited to be here this week with you guys again. As you know, we're doing this Tuesday, Thursday thing, and Tuesday I thought we'd be on YouTube, but it turns out that YouTube has a 24-hour cycle before they'll upload, before they'll allow me to do the webcam broadcast. So, I'm gonna just go ahead and start on Facebook, and then we're actually looking for a program that will let us do the broadcast on Facebook and then blast it out to all the different places that someone might want to see me. So look forward to that. First, I want to start off with what I owe people from last week. So it turns out that I thought I'd done really well with the ums and ahs. And in fact, here's my coin. And I think I owe something like 18 quarters to my kid. So I'm just going to go ahead and start dumping quarters in here for the what I owe him. And then we'll just, hopefully this week I won't go quite as far. I probably owe some change on there. Let me go throw that in there. Okay, he's getting better off. I'm getting worse off. Story of life. It's a giant generational transfer of wealth. 1 quarter a day at a time, right? Also, I've been told, and I noticed this when I was looking at the video, that the backgrounds are backwards. I think you guys probably see Mythborn backwards, and you might see the signage and all that backwards. Yeah, we know. We're trying to figure out how to fix the selfies mode in the camera settings in Facebook. So until Facebook Live, until I figure that out, you will see Mythborn backwards, but we'll hopefully get it fixed. It happens on my shirt too, so it's not like you probably haven't already noticed this and seen it every time. It might be possible, I think, for us in post-production on Facebook to flip the video around. So let's see if we can do that, and that way at least you'll see me in the right, left to right kind of format. Okay, well, today, because today is sort of the strange ways in which I've been, Mythborn has been influenced by things I do, and not specifically talking about things like how to write better or how to develop characters better, but more about the inspirations behind what got me to Mythborn. Last week we talked a little bit about religion, and a little bit about different kinds of mythology, and a little bit about how mythology can perhaps start from eons ago in a forgotten world, and all we have left is the memory of those stories, which are now myths. This week, I thought I would talk about games. So I've gotten quite a few requests to find out what video games I play. You guys know I'm a professional video game designer and developer. I've spent about 30 years doing that, so I have a lot of passion for playing games and for trying out new games. And I thought I'd share with you guys some of the stuff that I'm playing now, and how these things influence my thoughts when it comes to Mythborn, the video game. So one of the things that's really interesting for me in the latest sort of trend of gaming has been survival games. I find them to be fun because your object is to try and survive against the elements, and that requires usually some sort of crafting, some sort of base building, some sort of resource gathering, and this really cool aspect of gameplay, which I call prioritization. So, I mean, I don't call it that. Anyone can call it that. It's not a game term. But the fact is, you have to prioritize how you're going to go about surviving. And do you gather the materials to make a fire before you gather the materials for water? Do you construct a weapon first? Do you do hunting? These are interesting conundrums that are left to the player to decide. And if the simulation is done correctly, there's really no right answer. I mean, clearly there's... Okay, I take that back. There's always a right answer when it comes to, do I try and build the Star Fortress first, or do I start my fire first when I have no resources? Fire would probably be better, because the Star Fortress is obviously many levels up, and you're not going to get all the resources you need. So if you're just around hunting, trying to gather enough materials to build something way beyond the basic materials you need in order to move up the chain, you're not going to live very long. And that, I guess, is the conceit of survival games, is there's this belief to some level that we all have some kind of common sense, and that common sense directs us to do things that will keep our character alive before we try and do things that will make playing our character more fun. better games give you less choices, I think, in the beginning, so you can't make too many mistakes. So let's get on to what I've actually been playing and really enjoying. So the first game I would recommend highly and is going to influence Mythborn, the video game, is Breathe Edge. Breath Edge, Breathe Edge, I'm not sure exactly how they pronounce it, but it's a game in which it has a nice, funny, comical kind of take on things. It has a survivor who is just trying to deliver his grandfather's casket to this graveyard in space, and his spaceship gets marooned, and as a result, he's stuck in this it's a broken open spaceship. His resources are scattered everywhere, and he's in a graveyard, a giant graveyard of ships, of all kinds of things. And it's how do you sort of keep yourself alive and then be able to explore more. Strangely, he has chickens with him, which is just an odd thing, and he also has a number of different other things that are funny and interesting. So, highly recommend it. It really is a great way to look at a novel way in which game designers have come up with giving players some choices, but also making them feel smart and intelligent when they get their choices right. I really have enjoyed playing it. I've only played it for about a half an hour, so I can't say that I'm an expert yet. But we'll get to games where I've been playing it many more hours than that. But this one is something that I'm going to be playing many hours of, I'm sure. And I think it's a good example of survival games that have been done right. The next one I want to talk about was Everspace. Everspace has been out for a little while. There's been a couple of DLCs. I get most of my games on Steam. On Steam, I think I have 273 games that I've downloaded on Steam. So I'm an avid player on Steam, and I try all the categories. One of the things I want to do as a producer and designer of video games is to be at least knowledgeable enough to understand why certain choices were made and what are the trends and how are game designers thinking of the world now and how are things changing. So for me, it's a part job thing, but it's also part just for fun and exploration. So Everspace has been this amazing game where there used to be a game way back in the early 80s or late 80s and 90s called Rogue, where you played a little smiley face that went through a dungeon and you killed monsters. I remember playing it on the Apple when I was a little kid, and I would take this little smiley face around, and then I would fight. All the monsters were alphabet letters, so A was something, B was something, bats I think, C was something else. And you would fight these different monsters, and then you would find treasure, and it was basically a dungeon, but it was text-based, ASCII-based almost, I think, code-wise. Well, every time you played, it was different because the dungeon was was generated on the fly. It was procedurally generated. Well, Everspace takes that formula, updates it to a much higher graphic resolution, and puts it in space where you're playing a fighter ship, and you go to different jumps. Each of these jumps is, quote, a dungeon, although the dungeon is open space. And you're given a random goal, either destroy the enemies or collect certain resources or trade with someone or rescue someone or destroy a certain, fixed position like a sentry bot or an oil rig or a space mining operation or whatever. And then every now and then you'll run into a trader and you can upgrade your weapons. And it's really fun. The graphics are amazing. The controls are really well done. And what's really great about it is every time you die on a run, you reappear at the beginning in your hangar, but you get to keep the money that you made that you haven't spent. And so every run through you can upgrade your ship a little bit. So even though you die, it's not such a big deal because you can go back, add a little more to your ship. Hopefully you had some weapons and stuff. If you died on the very first encounter, on the very first jump, no big deal. You don't lose really much. You just jump in again and you try again. And so what's really fun is being able to upgrade your character, which is your ship, very easily with very low consequences. And I think in Mythborn, in an RPG, with a slight survival edge, one of the things I haven't seen done much in the fantasy RPG realm in open world, I've seen a lot of crafting. I'm not saying crafting isn't there. And I've seen a lot of collaborative play and group play and things like that. But imagine if you close your eyes and you woke up in the world of Mythborn. There would be an element of survival also, of learning what this world is about, of learning how magic works, and also what's dangerous and what's not dangerous. One of the things I'm planning for in the Mythborn series is what happens when Mythborn, and we know the world of Eden, is part of a galactic family of worlds, and this world has dropped off the grid, for lack of a better term. It's, lost. The terraformer that would have refashioned it has gone offline. So that's why the world of Eden is so insular, and the nanotechnology trapped in the world has created a kind of magic system based on people's dreams, and the world is basically isolated. Well, what happens when the equivalent of a Verizon tech is sent to find out why that world isn't communicating? When that tech lands on the planet, how do they survive? What do they do? So that is a theme I'd like to explore in the Mythborn video game, which is, how do you survive on a fantasy RPG world with your equipment, which, to some extent, it might be usable as a weapon, but it's going to take more than that, right? You're going to have to figure out how to deal with knights and dragons and stuff you haven't seen, but you've heard of in myth and mythology and legend in your world. And here's a world that has a basis in science, but as far as they're concerned, as far as you're concerned, this is, stuff you've never seen before, and you need to figure out how to survive in it. So I think when you look at Breathe Edge and you look at Everspace, I love that sort of survival mixed with low impact to failure. I don't think players enjoy with giant steps backwards when they fail. I think what they really want is to learn from their failure and then try again. And that learn from failure, try again is I think a very integral part to great game design. Learn from failure, try again, and make it fun to succeed. Even if you die, make the death somehow valuable to your next life, right? The next thing you do. The next thing I've been playing is Slay the Spire. So Slay the Spire came out on Steam, and it is a cool mix of sort of a side-based tactics game, the kind you see when you look at some of these other, big head games. I call them big head games because they always have characters with big heads, and they're trying to basically battle the other side, and they have to move on a board that's roughly 3D, and they have to figure out how to, do whatever they got to do to beat the other side. You see them a lot on the iPad games. I wish I could remember the name of one right now, so I could just throw it out there. I think Heroes Quest might be one, but I gotta double check that. But my point is that this one is sort of like that. It's a side action game where your party's on this side and the enemies are on this side, and you are able to attack your enemy on certain turns. Your enemy can attack you back. What's interesting and innovative about this game is you also have a deck, and the deck it basically has a shuffle deck that has all these different kinds of power-ups and defenses and buffs. And so you're playing these cards in order to beat the enemies. And then as you beat one enemy, you see an overall map that sort of branches upward, and you have to choose sort of the path you're going to take to try and get through this spire and, get to the top. So, weird kind of cool way, it's fun because there's not you can learn it in 3 minutes, and it's very easy to understand and play, and it's a lot of fun as you're sort of playing the cards, and you get certain bonuses to your deck, and then you get to sort of choose what cards you want in your deck, and you're thinking about your deck building, but you're also sort of playing this tactical game of, do I attack this guy first, or this guy first, or do I attack all of them with something weaker? And I think, I don't think Mythborn, the video game, will ever be a side-scrolling thing. There may be a mini-game in there, like, you see in The Witcher. Something fun that's side-scrolling maybe that we do, maybe with little animals and some animal combat thing that, has to do with pets. But what I really see that's interesting here is the idea of cards, sigils, and runes, right? So the collection of runes and sigils and cards, this collection of runes and sigils on something like a card or a coin. and being able to match and mix and match them to create larger effects is something I've always wanted to explore as a Magic system. So stay tuned a little bit. I'm been thinking a little bit about how to build an alphabet out of runes that actually allow you to cast spells that are they're understandable visually. So it's visual runes that tell you sort of what the spell is going to do. So stay tuned for some designing there and see how that ends up looking. I might test that out as a small little spellmaker type thing on an app first, get some feedback from you guys, and then see where that goes. The other game I've been playing a lot, and 2 more than we're done, is Rebel Galaxy. So Rebel Galaxy is your standard, Galaxy on Fire type game. You start off in a small ship. You can be a trader. You can be a trador, not a traitor. A trader. You can be a hotshot flyboy. You can be a mercenary hunting people. And I gotta tell you, it's funny. Like, great graphics, a lot of fun. The 2 big innovative things there's one. These ships you have, they're armed with broadside cannons. So the way that ship-to-ship combat works is you have to sort of line up parallel to the guy and then fire off your broadsides, which feels sort of cool. Like, it's a lot of fun to broadside someone with a salvo of torpedoes or lasers. I actually find it very satisfying. It's not dogfighting. In fact, there's fighters that come in on your ship, and you have turrets that are designed. You can set them with AI if they go after other fighters. If they shoot at the fighters or not, or if they shoot at capital ships. But the point is that it feels cool to broadside something. I think that's super innovative and fun. Certainly, you've seen it on pirate games before, but in space, not so much. And I enjoy that little nuance when it comes to outfitting my ship and upgrading. And the other thing they do that's really neat, which I sort of almost gave up on the game at one point because I thought, I sort of get how this works. One of the hard things is if you're a game designer, a lot of times you can see the formula of what is happening behind the scenes. And once you understand how the game is deciding to advance you or to give you, the next bonus or whatever, the fun leaves because it's not something you can't calculate anymore. And once you can calculate it, it becomes just sort of a visual math problem. And for me, at least, if I know the answer, I tend to lose interest in the game. So one of the things I really enjoy is not pure RNG, not pure random number generation, but some element of randomness in the rolls that make it difficult for me to ascertain the outcome, but they do allow me to shorten or to shrink the probability space into what that outcome could be. So that way I feel like I'm doing something to improve my ship, but I don't know necessarily everything that's going to happen. In that sense, like XCOM does a really good job, XCOM 2. So, one of the things I really like about the game is it feels like I'm in this one system doing my thing, and I was like, I sort of get what's going to happen, But then I found out there's all these other star systems, and each star system has a totally different kind of feel to it, and each system you have these miners guilds and these mercenary guilds you can join, and then you have all these different ships you can buy. And one of the things I really love is customization. So I like to be able to have a lot of different ships to choose from and a lot of cool things to change my ship with, and I really thought it was cool that they included something like that. So I was pretty excited. So I'm playing it still. I'm really enjoying it. I would recommend it highly. All these games I recommend highly if you're on Steam or wherever you buy your games from. The last one, and there's no surprise on this one. It's gotten high reviews everywhere, but I just wanted to put my 2 cents in, and that is it's more than 2 cents. It's gonna be another quarters, and I just said I probably said this whole time. Anyways, Subnautica. So, for those of you who like the spaceship feel of movement in 0G or 6 Degrees of Freedom, Subnautica takes you underwater to do that. You're a sub. You're a spaceship that's crashed in the ocean, and your little tiny pod is left, and you have to figure out a way to survive on this watery planet. And it involves researching things. It involves finding resources. It involves upgrading your ship. Your ships can only go a certain depth before they get crushed, so it has this inherent sort of growth pattern in what you need to allocate and what you need to recover in order to build better ships to be able to go deeper. And obviously the best things are at the deepest level, so you have this inherent cool reward matrix for trying to get you down lower. But what I love is just, I really feel like I'm exploring something. Like, the water world is done really well. The underwater graphics are great. The above water graphics are great. There's a mystery going on the island. There's this giant gun that, fired at your rescue ship and wrecks it. And I hope I'm not spoiling anything for anyone. But anyways, that was very early in the game. So, you're on this planet and you have to figure out how to get off the planet. And that's a really cool adventure because you can build a base. You can, as I said, build these ships. You can do analysis. And it's definitely a time suck. So when I look at that open world exploration with a end objective of getting off planet. And I see that as part of the Mythborn overall game. So I said before, there's a technician sent to find out what happened to Eden. Like, why did they go offline and what happened there? Well, when they show up, you as that character, and I'm going to let you build your own character because I love character customization, but your role is this tech that's landed. You're an expert in nanotechnology. You're an expert in manipulating nanites. But you have to figure out how to interface with what the stuff is on the planet. You have to figure out what to craft. You have to figure out how to survive. And then you have to figure out how to get off planet, right? How to repair your ship and get off planet before you're, either eaten or killed or enslaved or whatever. And the great thing is you get to meet all the characters in the book. And some of them will try and help you and some won't. And that's, I think, depending on your actions, you may befriend some and you may not. I love the idea of factions. I love the idea of guilds. So look forward to something really interesting that sort of takes this exploration and survival mechanic and puts it into an RPG world where your ultimate goal is to discover what's happened on this world, unravel what's happened, and then make your way off planet safely so you can get back to the galactic core and explain what happened and see what should happen next. So anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed my talks about games that I'm playing now. This will be a repeat thing. I can't possibly go over 273 games that I'm playing at one time or another by doing 5 at a time, so that I have more than enough stuff to talk to you guys about each time. I'm going to continue my quest to say less, and I'm going to I'm going to come up with better topics and fun topics. This was actually one generated by one of our viewers, so keep the comments coming. I love talking about stuff like that. Baltimore Comic-Con is coming up. I believe it's the 29th and 30th. And I will be showing you guys my quarter thing next time. And my goal is to be less than 18 times with that particular word than this time. So we'll see if that happens. Look forward to seeing you guys. Look forward to our broadcasts on YouTube coming as soon as we figure out how to do that. And also look forward to us fixing this backwards thing as soon as we can. Until then, stay loyal, be fun, Mythborn 24/7, 365. Grab the books, enjoy what we're doing, and please leave me your comments. I really, really love hearing from you guys. Thanks. Have a great week. I'll see you on Thursday.